I'm Connor Boyack, author of the Tuttle Twins books. You've got a question. What books are our books based on? And I've got the answer for you. All right, so the deal with all of the books in our children's book series is that they are all based off of classic books or texts, sometimes essays. What we wanted to do with this book series is take all of that wisdom of the ages that's been published over the years and distill it down into a very simple and fun format. Why? Well, let's take one of these books, for example. Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. Phenomenally popular book decades ago talking about free market economics. But because it was written over half a century ago, the English is a little different. The words are much longer, multi-syllable words, kind of a drier style of writing. So that book, if I were to hand that book to you and say, hey, you should read this book, honestly, what do you think the chances are that you're going to read Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt? Well, maybe you're weird and you're into that stuff and you would just plow through the book. But if you're anything like the average person, you're not reading that book at all. And so the Tuttle Twins books become a very effective way to distill down those core ideas and to be able to convey to certainly children, but also adults, a lot of these kind of powerful ideas. Now, in the back of the book, we point people to the original books upon which ours was based. So for example, here's the Tuttle Twins and the Food Truck Fiasco. And at the very end of the book, we talk about, hey parents, I'm Henry Hazlitt. He was the author of Economics in One Lesson. And so we explain what the original book is, why it's powerful, why, there's all these great ideas in it, and why you should consider potentially going to read the actual source text, which was the inspiration for our book. The Law, our first book, was based off of The Law by Frederick Bastiat, a powerful essay talking about our rights and human liberty and justice. So that's based off of The Law. We've got the Tuttle Twins and the Miraculous Pencil, which is based off of a highly popular essay called I, Pencil, written half a century ago by Leonard Read, who is the founder of the Foundation for Economic Education. It's the autobiography of a pencil, and basically its premise is that this simple object, a common pencil, is so infinitely complex that no one actually knows how to make it. It is the combined wisdom of millions of people working together to create a simple pencil. That's the power of the free market. Great essay, great story, and that's the basis for that book. Then we've got the Tuttle Twins and the Creature from Jekyll Island. This is based off of the book The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, where we explain what inflation is, how it happens, what banks are, central banks, money, gold, the gold standard, all that kind of stuff. This is a very popular book of late with all the inflation that we're experiencing, but this book is based off of that book and that idea. We talked about the Food Truck Fiasco. Tuttle Twins and The Road to Serfdom is based off of a book called The Road to Serfdom, S-E-R-F, so like being a serf or a slave of sorts. So this was a highly popular book written by F.A. Hayek, who was a Nobel Prize-winning free market economist, and he wrote The Road to Serfdom decades ago. Powerful book talking about central planning, the importance of individualism versus collectivism. In fact, Elijah has this amazing drawing in here where he contrasts individualism and collectivism, showing that one is a voluntary handshake and agreement. The other is, the government is forcing people into an association. So this is a great book to understand individual freedom and why it matters. The Tuttle Twins and the Golden Rule is based off of a book called A Foreign Policy of Freedom by former Congressman and presidential candidate Ron Paul. So this book, A Foreign Policy of Freedom, is a collection of a lot of different speeches that he gave talking about foreign policy, primarily everything in the context of what's called the non-aggression principle. So this is something that is core to liberty, the idea to not be an aggressor against other people. It's okay to defend yourself, but you should never be the instigator of, aggression and violence. And so that is kind of very related to the concept of the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So this whole book talks about that concept and how it applies to our world today. Tuttle Twins and the Search for Atlas, based off of Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Very popular book, very long book, fictional story, and depicts the problems with socialism. Highly popular, also very long-winded in a lot of parts. This is the simplified version, the Reader's Digest version of Atlas Shrugged, where we explain to kids the dangers of socialism, right? The problems of looting and mooching and having a victimized society rather than a society of producers who are rewarded for their hard work. Of course, this doesn't relate at all to our day. Nothing in that story has any bearing on what's going on in our world today, right? I jest. Okay, the Tuttle Twins and their spectacular show business. This is an awesome book about entrepreneurship. Some of the drawings in here that Elijah did are spectacular in their own right. And so this book is based on a book written by Dr. Israel Kirzner called Competition and Entrepreneurship, basically talking about the central role of entrepreneurs in a free market system and in a world of innovation. Why our world is better as a result of entrepreneurship. This whole book talks to kids about what a business plan is. So the Tuttle Twins basically start up a business, and they have to walk through through from beginning to end how to set a business plan. Here's one of the later drawings that kind of summarizes what they had learned in previous pages, where with their grandma, they're starting to go over all the different aspects of a business. So if you've got any little entrepreneurial kids, this is a fantastic book to inspire them. We've got the Tuttle Twins and the Fate of the Future. This is a really fun book, based off of a book by Murray Rothbard titled Anatomy of the State, where he talks about the dangers of the state. What is the state? Not like the state of Nevada or the state of Texas, but the state as a term to describe coercive government. So this could be your city that you live in or the federal government. But basically when a government says, within this jurisdiction, we are a monopoly, we control everything, kind of like a gang. Well, is it different than a gang? And is it not? And what does that mean? So in this book, we talk a lot about consent. When the Declaration of Independence talks about the consent of the governed, what does that actually mean? What does consent look like? Fate of the Future rests on us figuring out how to have a voluntary society where we interact with one another through persuasion rather than coercion. Great, great book. One of my faves. But like a parent, right? You can't have faves. You can't pick and choose. They're all my faves, but that one's kind of one of my bigger faves. Next book, The Tuttle Twins and the Education Vacation. This one is based off of a book written by John Taylor Gatto, 30-year public school teacher who laid bare from his experience all the problems with public schooling. He passed away a few years ago, huge inspiration in my life and why I ended up homeschooling my kids. This is a really fun book about how the twins who previously were in school are now pulled out of school to be homeschooled. This book explains what some of the problems and dangers with schooling are, and whether you homeschool or not, lots of nuggets of wisdom in here about what true learning looks like and how to help our kids be inspired to learn. All right, two more. We got Tuttle Twins and the Messed Up Market. This book is a really important one that we released right during the height of COVID with all the interventions and the PPP loans and the subsidies and the bailouts and the interest rate and everything else. This is based off of Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, who is a free market economist, one of the most famous and successful ones. He wrote this thick book called Human Action, very dense, very hard to read, even if you're really an economic geek, very advanced. This book distills down that core wisdom into a children's book, making it way more accessible so that people like you and I can better understand what he's talking about and why when you intervene in the market, when the government puts its thumb on the scale and tries to manipulate things, it messes up the market and creates a lot of distortion. We're seeing this in the economy today, right? This book gives a voice, gives a focal point so that kids can better understand what's going on and why it's a problem. Now, at the time of recording this video, we have 12 books in the series. I'll talk in a moment about others as well, but this is the last one that we have published as of now. This is The Tuttle Twins and the Leviathan Crisis. It is based off of a book written by Bob Higgs called Crisis and Leviathan, where he documented, I think back in the 80s, how when there's a crisis, the government grows. Leviathan is a kind of term of art for big government. And so every time there's a crisis, every time there's a problem, the government swoops in and says, oh, surrender your freedoms and I'll save you. And we say, oh, okay, keep us safe. Here you go. Here's our freedoms. So during COVID, with all the shutdowns and lockdowns and mandates and everything going on, we thought it would be important to release this book that chronicles from decades past how every time there's a crisis, the government has grown and never shrinks back. And certainly that happened with COVID, and it's going to happen in the future as well. So this is an extremely timely book. Now, again, at the time we're recording it, those are the 12 published books that we have so far in the series. The 13th, which is shortly to come, is based off of 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Ours is called The Tuttle Twins and the 12 Rules Boot Camp. Really exciting book where the twins whip their uncle into shape by teaching him 12 essential rules for living. So that's based off of Jordan Peterson's book. We're going to continue publishing additional books in this series. So we're going to have quite a few books more to come over the years. Again, the goal here is to help kids learn some of these powerful ideas that aren't being taught in schools. And if anything, quite the opposite ideas are being taught in schools. And even if, you're homeschooled, your kids are being exposed to TikTok and YouTube and all kinds of other, garbage and fluff and things that don't help them understand how the world works. Our goal with these books is to help inspire kids to understand the powerful ideas of a free society. And by doing it through storytelling, it sinks way deeper. We hear from parents all the time talking about these light bulb moments their kids are having because the stories made these ideas stick. If we were to just write a textbook and here's what these mean and okay, moving on and fill out the bubble worksheet and, memorize all this stuff, it would not resonate with these kids. They wouldn't understand it. But when you teach through storytelling, it sticks. This stuff resonates. Kids remember it for a long time because it's associated in their mind with a fun story that they read. Now, for each of these books, we have activity workbooks so the kids can go fill out fun little coloring pages and crossword puzzles and word searches that help them kind of reinforce the ideas that they learned about in the books. We also have audiobooks as well that go along with these. So if your kids like to listen as they read, we've got professionally recorded audiobooks as well. Not recorded by me. That would not sound as good. And we also have parent guides. So for each of these books, you may be like, well, I don't understand that, economics in one lesson. I've never read it. And so we provide parent guides where we help you understand exactly what's going on in that book so that you can be able to better talk to your kid about these different ideas. So our goal is to help you as a family be able to learn and remember and apply these powerful ideas. And again, we're trying to draw upon the wisdom of the centuries and the past decades from these amazing economists and philosophers and other people who spent a lot of time writing these books that have gone on to influence millions of people, but maybe those books are now a little bit older. Maybe not as many people have heard about them today. Maybe they're not as accessible because they're written in older English and, we're kind of a dumbed down society where everything's got to be a third grade level. Well, here you go. We got stuff at a third grade level with pictures where you can understand some of this stuff too. But in all honesty, this has been a very effective medium to teach kids and their parents about these ideas and then interest them in the original books. So many of these families, they like this, it's their toe in the water, and they're like, oh, we want to learn more. So they'll go get the book, and as a family, they can kind of read in pieces the original book and talk about it together. It's a great way as a springboard into these ideas. Or if you just want to keep it light and have some fun stories, knowing that your kids are going to be exposed to good, true ideas along the way rather than fluffy nonsense or, ideological garbage from, other types of books that put that junk in them, you can trust that the Tuttle Twins books aren't going to do that. So even if you just keep it easy and just say, hey, kids, here's some fun stories, and you leave it at that, you'll just know that they're being exposed to good content. So more books to come. Hopefully that answers the question for now about what is in the books that we have so far. Check out TuttleTwins.com for all the books we have, including books for toddlers, for teenagers as well. We've got all kinds of curriculum. We've got a family game. We got all kinds of stuff. So head to TuttleTwins.com/products and you can see that full list. Certainly, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media. We're very easy to find, or you can contact our customer service team at info@TuttleTwins.com.